Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Light. And today I have my friend Elisa Haggarty, who is a
Yay.
functional nutritionist and lifestyle expert, and also the founder of Culinary Farmacy. And we are going to do a deep dive conversation jamming about sugar and, why perhaps you might want to consider leaving it behind. So welcome, Elisa. It's so nice to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you and to your audience about all things sugar and how we got to be where we are today.
Yes. So let's just start off. I just love starting everything off with talking about, how did you end up becoming a functional nutritionist? And what I know almost everybody I talk to that's on this path has their own personal story that really was like the catalyst to them doing what they do now.
Yeah, great question. I think story is like the basis of all beginning for healing and transformation. And when I think back, it's like I always loved food, but I didn't quite know how to feed myself. I grew up on a lot of home cooked meals, but a lot of junk, a lot of sugar. I was an athlete, so I had my fair share of like M&Ms and Kit Kats and just like straight up candy, and really not good food. So my sweet tooth was started very early, and it became a problem, I guess you would say, or kind of like I had to start waking up to realizing how I was feeding my body when I was in high school and college. And I would fall asleep all the time in class. And I didn't understand why I couldn't like stay awake. I was a high school athlete and student, and my coaches and teachers would yell at me because they thought I was a bad student. I wouldn't be able to pay attention. So I just, these little things happened. And during the time, I didn't know it was related to like my diet and my breakfast and my lunch and my blood sugar balance. But I found out much later in life that, part of the reason I wasn't excelling all the way was because, my diet wasn't at all helping me do that. So that's kind of where I started to put the pieces together. And then after college, I started to really, play with food and get in the kitchen and make new recipes. I wasn't very good at it. In fact, I burnt a lot of things and made a lot of mistakes. But that's what you do. So basically, I guess the juicy part of it is I got into health and I got into nutrition because of my own health concerns. And I know people talk about this as, a way that most people do transition into a new career, a new endeavor, is because of trauma or tragedy or sadness. And basically I went through like a year of like, clinical depression and anxiety. And it took that year of me basically taking medications to figure out what was I doing in my diet, my daily day, my routine, my food intake that was influencing my ability to feel happy or sad. And I started to notice correlations. When I started my day off with breakfast and a chocolate chip cookie and, not the good kind either, and like a can of Dr. Pepper, I started to realize that I was accepting more sad those days. And then I looked back on high school and college and I said, oh, like I really did have a lot of mood swings. I wonder if that was related to my diet. And then I started to do research. And I enrolled at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I did a bunch of online courses since then. And the writing's on the wall. What you eat is food is information for your cells. It basically dictates your mood, your mental clarity, your energy, your ability to get up and be a person in the world. And so it was kind of from my own struggle that basically a new career, a new life was born. And I'm really grateful for it, even though it was a really tough time. But that's kind of where it began in the nutshell.
Yeah, I can so relate to that. Very similar story over here. And I love that the commonality is also the fact that both of us kind of decided to be our own detectives about it and just be like, okay, it sounds so basic, but I think until you're in that position, or sometimes until you hear someone like us say it, you don't even think to do it. Let me just stop and take a second and like make a note of, wow, like I always say this when I start with clients, I'm sure you probably do the same thing. I'm like, you don't have to change anything right away, right? Sure. Just start observing and start notice. You get that coffee with your like croissant in the morning and just notice, how do you feel around 10 a.m.? Like, how is that working for you? You know, try a smoothie one day. How does that feel at 10 a.m.? And,
sure.
There's no like necessarily black and white, but just kind of coming on with that curiosity is so necessary. So speaking to that, was your, I think recently sugar in the past like year or so has gotten lots of hype. It's like the trendy thing to do now. And sometimes I genuinely feel like that shoots a lot of good will in the foot.
Yeah.
Because there can be so much hype around it that people are just, understandably overwhelmed and kind of lost as to, is this the latest diet trend, or is this actually something that is going to have a tremendous impact on my life?
Sure.
So my curiosity is, when did you kind of come to your revelation around sugar and go through that process yourself of detoxifying? And just take us through that.
Yeah. So after I finished studying at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, I still was a sugar addict. I still loved sugar. Even though I was like trying my best to walk, I was like, what the heck? I'm addicted to cupcakes and crappy chocolate. And I was like, what's going on? How can I help people if I'm in this situation? I moved to Brooklyn, New York. I actually enrolled at the culinary school, the Natural Gourmet Institute. And I thought, this will be great. I'll get more culinary repertoire to add in, different fats and fibers and proteins to help me feel more satiated, and I started to really realize that I was still addicted to sugar. I remember moving into an apartment in Brooklyn, and I moved across the street, literally, from the only vegan bakery in New York City. And I was like, or in Brooklyn, I was like, how did I pick an apartment that's across from a bakery?
Wait, so you have to tell me which one. It's not Dunwell, is it?
It's Clementine's. I don't know if they're still open, but it was like right in a Bushwick area. And I remember thinking, like, every day I'm waking up, I'm trying to build this, career where I can help people. And like in through my window was like wafts of like brownies and muffins. And I was like, I am in trouble. So those are, again, like these moments at like 24, 25, 26 years old, where I'm like, actually at that point I was like 28, 27, 28. I was like, this is a big thing. So I kind of put my thinking cap on, and I thought, if I'm going to help people make a change, I not only have to change myself, but I have to learn the science, and also the science of habit formation as to how I can really create a new normal. And this is the phrase that I use a lot, create a new normal, around food and around sugar cravings. So I started my online courses and my online education to help people do just that. And so, does that answer the question of kind of how I got a little bit further down the road?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so interesting. And for me, it was very similar where, I also was, I had kind of eliminated a lot of other inflammatory things from my diet. Was eating what most people would look like as very, very, very clean.
Yeah.
But still, would have the vegan gluten-free chocolate chip cookie. And for me, like, I'm a baker, so like I would make them.
Sure.
And, and the cupcakes and stuff like that. And it was really, for me, giving up sugar was all about focus.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I know you're into this as well, but for me, I think about food very strategically with
mm-hmm.
how I'm fueling myself and how it's going to make me feel. And I noticed that, when I first, cleaned up my diet and I did an elimination diet, released all of my food allergies, my food that I was allergic to, and got clear, I felt amazing. I had like
mm-hmm.
so much energy. So I was like a ball of like energy. Yeah. And after a while, like a few years ago, I realized that I felt like I was like ADDing like a crazy kid. And I was like, something is wrong. This is not normal, and this is not right. And that's kind of how I came to sugar, and decided to experiment with it and taking it out. And I think I took it out for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was like laser focused again. It was like it sold itself. Yeah. I was like,
it does.
Insane. Like, I didn't even know this much focus was possible.
I think that's the biggest thing, is people don't even realize that there's another level to life and to health. We get in these ruts where we're just doing our job, we're paying the bills, we're going out a few nights a week, and we kind of we're here. And then we forget that there's levels to vitality, there's levels to mental health, there's levels to energy and like confidence. And I would say the first sugar cleanse I actually did was before I started Culinary Farmacy. I spent about a month in Hawaii before I moved to Brooklyn with my partner. And we stayed. And I said, again, if I'm going to be doing this Culinary Farmacy thing, I got sugar. So I spent, I want to say 10 days without sugar, and it was like no added sweeteners. And when you're in Hawaii, the greatest thing to have in Hawaii is an acai bowl. And they have generally some level of added sweetener or sugar. And I wasn't even doing sweeteners, like no honey, no maple syrup. I was just trying to keep it super clean. And again, I had no real idea of what I was doing because I hadn't quite mastered the physiology of blood sugar balance, which is a real thing and does help. So long story short, well, coming into that 10-day sugar cleanse, I was adrenally fatigued. I probably had 10 extra pounds on me. I felt like I was skinny fat, to be honest. I just felt like I didn't have any muscle. I was so fatigued from, the career that I had just left as a high school English teacher. And I just was deflated. I had no mental clarity or alertness. I couldn't focus. So I was really a mess. So I did those 10 days. It was very hard. I learned the value of snacks and carrots and celery and just having fresh food around me. And I felt so incredible. I actually have a before and after picture of me. It's like night and day. I lost well over 10 pounds very quickly. I leaned out. I had no more adrenal fatigue, which means I wasn't craving salty, crunchy things. I popped up out of bed at 6 a.m. instead of getting up at noon. There was a world of difference for me in my very first time. And again, I did that on my own, and I don't recommend it, but I did that on my own in the very beginning to kind of see what was going on, how it would actually impact me. And it was traumatic. It was not traumatic. It was dramatically awesome. Yeah. It was kind of traumatic in moments. My wife almost divorced me. She's like, what are you doing? You are getting hangry. You need some fat in your diet. So, I learned the nuances of it over the years, but.
Yes. Warn the significant others.
Oh God, the poor thing. She didn't know what to do with me in the beginning, but it did get better. So.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Yeah. And there's ways now, it's funny now that I'm sure with you too, now that you're teaching how to do it. And for me, even when I help clients on it, now I'm eat lots of healthy fats. I think once I started incorporating more avocado, I literally became a nicer human in the beginning.
Actually, I wanted to say that too is one of the everyone has different motivations for cleaning up their diet, getting their health together. And sometimes people want to get a raise at work. Sometimes people want to attract a partner or whatever, or they just want to run a 5K faster. Everyone has different goals. But someone just registered for my cleanse and they said in the comments, they said, you know what? I'm just really happy to be a better person. And it was funny because I hadn't said that in a while, but that's what food does, right? It allows us to feel like we're taking care of ourselves. We calm down, we become more mindful of what we're eating and how we're eating and where we're eating. And we begin to kind of come home to ourselves. And I think that was a beautiful comment that this person made. And I think everyone here can think about that as be kinder to yourself. And I think food has that ability to truly nourish you versus just satisfy you.
Yeah. Oh God, I love that. And I think that, I want us to go through the benefits of sugar cleansing. And also, I guess maybe before we even go through that, let's just talk about, because I think there's a lot of confusion and I know everybody has different opinions on this. So what's your opinion as far as what is eliminating sugar? Does that mean, I know you mentioned all sweeteners, does that include fruit? Or I know you mentioned that you're eating carrots, but some people even eliminate high sugar vegetables like carrots. Sure. And beets. So what is that what did that look like for you? And what do you generally recommend along that path?
I think, there's so many levels to it. If someone comes to me with type 2 diabetes and they are struggling and they have to make a change, we will go, and if they're ready, we will go a lot further than a lot of people will do in a sugar cleanse, for example. So they might address high glycemic vegetables like beets and carrots. They may be, a little bit less on those. But when I talk about sugar, I talk about white sugar, like cane sugar, raw sugar, just white sugar in general. And it's in so many things, from ketchup to just crackers and even bread nowadays. And even healthy energy drinks. There's 19 grams of cane sugar in that. I don't care if it has green tea in it. It has 19 grams of cane sugar. It's not a good match. So that's kind of where I start, is just addressing white sugar intake. And as I address helping people identify and get rid of white sugar, it's adding in, like we mentioned, these healthy fats, these healthy proteins that really help to send chemical messengers to your brain to say, I'm full, I'm satiated, versus just snacking on refined carbohydrates, which make you kind of a cookie monster. You just want to keep eating them. But when you eat a half an avocado, it's really hard to say. Most people don't eat a half an avocado and say, oh, I'm still hungry. That doesn't really happen, because fat has this beautiful ability to slow the spike of glucose, satiate your appetite, nourish your brain, replenish your thyroid, which is a huge factor in blood sugar regulation and body temperature regulation. So many things happen, but that's kind of it. White sugar, and the next levels are for people who want to take out all sweeteners. So honey, maple syrup, coconut nectar, all pretty good sweeteners, like low glycemic for the most part and helpful. That's something that I encourage people to do a few times a year. So just give yourself 10 days, 22 days, no sweeteners. Just get used to life with fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, leafy greens, animal protein, beans, lentils. Get used to whole foods without a sweetener. And I think that's the good next level to get to when people are ready for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it, like you said, it depends what people are coming to it with and for.
Totally. Yeah.
From my experience, I've had a lot of, I've had disordered eating in the past. I've had a lot of addictive tendencies around food. So it was actually easier for me to go cold turkey.
Yeah, I think that too. Yep.
And not do anything and not even do, like I would only do berries and,
berries.
Now I've like, when I first did I do that, but like now I've integrated and I allow myself to have like more fruit and stuff. But during the first like kind of quote unquote detox period, as I would call it, when I was really trying to like get it out of my system and like level out my cravings, I found that it was really helpful. Actually, it made it, in my opinion, a lot easier because I was trying to remove the addictive tendencies I had around sugar, where I think a lot of us have this, but I'm hyper aware of it just because I know that like I'm like a creature of habit to like the T, and I can rig that towards me, or I can easily rig that against me.
Totally.
And sugar was definitely a way that I would, I'd go and it would start off with like a drizzle of honey on my oatmeal. And
then it's like a tablespoon and then you're like, what's going on? Yeah.
And then I'm having a cookie at lunch and, and it's like,
and then someone has 2 glasses of wine and then they finish the night with 3 pieces of dark chocolate, which all what we're saying, for everybody listening, those are all exceptional nutrient dense foods. But what we're trying to impart too is it's not only how you eat the food and the levels that you kind of go to cleaning up your diet, but it's how these foods work in your body, So honey is still going to spike glucose. It's still going to create an insulin surge, which is going to be damaging to your liver and to your brain. And then, things like wine and chocolate are great in combination, and they're really good in, they're superfoods, right? They're fantastic. But how do we eat them? Do we have 3 glasses of wine because we're doing it emotionally to kind of get rid of life? Or are we enjoying 3 glasses of wine with friends and having this sense of like love and appreciation for the product and the drink? And same with chocolate. It's all about how you eat it. I know we talked about this as eating with intention, and I think that's also really important for people to understand. But really quickly about the fruit, in my cleanse I do, and in my work I do recommend fruit. I think it's pound for pound one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. Berries are exceptional: raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, even all the berries. And I think those are most low glycemic. They're most beneficial for the brain. They have the greatest, antioxidant capacity of mostly any of the fruits. I think the fruits where I wouldn't say warn people, but I give some insight that, mangoes and pineapple are things that should be enjoyed more seasonally, which would be for us in the warmer temperature. And mango smoothie in winter doesn't make much sense. And and also it could be really high in sugar, or in other words, it creates a huge glucose surge. So, mango in itself doesn't contain white sugar, so that makes sense. But because it does contain so many natural occurring sugars because it's a fruit, it's still going to cause a spike in glucose and then insulin. And that's where we begin to, even healthy people, and I see this a lot in the vegan world, which I was a vegan for 3 years. I'm a huge supporter of plant-based eating. In fact, my diet is still 90% plant-based. What I see a lot in the vegan health world is people going crazy on fruit, acai bowls, healthy treats and snacks and macaroons and all this stuff because it's gluten-free, because it's vegan. And actually those are the people who tend to struggle the most with chronic health concerns like osteoporosis and mental health. That's a big comment right there, but that's very, very accurate because they're not understanding blood sugar management.
So let's talk a little bit more about this blood sugar management that
Sure.
you brought up.
Absolutely. So this is kind of the next layer of understanding not only how to prevent disease, but reverse it, and to make sure that you're living a vital life for a very long time. Every time you eat, your glucose or the carbohydrates from what you eat, and even sometimes the protein, converts to glucose. And so after every meal, after every snack, after every smoothie or whatever you have, you're going to have a rise in glucose. And as your blood sugar rises, okay, glucose is blood sugar, you're going to have a surge in insulin. And that's good because insulin's job is basically to come in there, puts on its chauffeur hat, and it goes and takes all this nice glucose and brings it to the cells that need it. Now, when those cells are full, this excess glucose gets transported into fat cells and then also into the liver. And that instigates high triglycerides, and it really dysregulates cholesterol management in the liver, which are the biggest indicators of heart disease and even brain disease. So this is something that we have to modify. So when I teach people, I say, there's 3 things every smoothie that I ever make has. And there's 3 things that every meal I make has. Tons of fat. Fat is one of the first things I think about when I'm building a plate or building a smoothie. A lot of adequate protein. I tend to try to have, like, I don't count, but I can know by now 15 to 20 grams of protein per meal helps keep me grounded, helps keep me satiated. You know, and that could be a cup of lentils, or it could be a chicken breast or salmon, you know, like a fillet of salmon. That's kind of an example of what I mean. And then tons of dietary fiber. Americans don't get enough fiber. And also just whole food fiber, like fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, like leafy greens. Like, we don't eat this. You know, we tend to get like a fiber drink, or a new company opens up and it's like fiber supplement. Like, no, just eat the fiber. Like, plants are fiber, eat plants, you know? And so when I make a smoothie, it's not just like a banana and blueberries. In fact, I'll probably do a half a banana, a cup of blueberries. I'll do like a quarter of an avocado, a couple big dollops of coconut milk, some ginger, some lemon zest, and some protein. I use pea protein in mine, or hemp protein, and I make that. And that right there is not necessarily always a meal replacement, but it could be if I needed it to be. So that's kind of like my foundation for blood sugar management but people don't do that. You go into a smoothie shop and it's like 9 cups of fruit in a smoothie. It's like, that's called insulin resistance. You can't do that, you know?
I know. Oh my God. There are some places where a lot of times when I'll get clients, and when we're formulating new healthy habits for them, I'll look up all the places around them. And some of these smoothie places, I'm like, don't even go in. Like, don't even go in.
You'd have to tell them to make the whole smoothie from scratch. I mean, you'd have to like pick it apart because it's so
like
crazy.
Based on this menu, they don't even have the ingredients to make a real smoothie.
Yeah, no, they usually don't. So,
but I love that, because I think that that's so important. I also, for someone that's, you know, listening to this and thinking like, oh my God, quitting sugar seems so daunting, seems kind of scary. I think that is really, at least I know in my experience, was definitely the key to an easier detox, right? It was really like amping up everything else, like even more vegetables, even like more avocado, more healthy fat, making sure you're eating, you know, enough beans or protein. Because I will say, like, as someone that doesn't eat meat, it can be even more challenging, I think.
Yeah, it is.
At least I would always envision. I would be like, wow, if I was eating meat, I bet this would be easier.
You know, I'm a plant-based advocate, but again, 90% of my diet's plants, but then the 10% will be fish and meat and chicken and hopefully, you know, great pastured animals. But the thing is, like, one of the biggest shifts I mentioned, or I wanted to mention, is when I went from vegan, which was like, basically, I had a cacao diet. That's all I ate was chocolate and like bread and like cheese. I mean, it was terrible. Like, my adrenals were zapped. My mind was racing. I couldn't sleep, but I was vegan, so I didn't really know. Anyway, the point was, I got the memo, and then I started to add in pastured eggs, salmon, because spiritually that felt better to me. I just had a hard time with eating meat for spiritual reasons, but my health was really struggling. So I was like, I got to change something. I got to change my ratios of protein or fat and whatever. So I started eating like bone broth and pastured eggs and salmon very slowly, alongside 5 or 6 cups of vegetables. And that was actually the biggest shift in my health, when I noticed my psoriasis stopped flaring up, my depression waned, I was able to get up in the morning, and most importantly, I did not crave sugar. I mean, it was kind of like a 2 or 3 month period where I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't even want sugar. And I didn't know what to do with it, because it was the first time ever, because I had gone from vegan, which is like super high sugar for me anyway, I was doing it wrong, to my new diet, which is, you know, which helped me a lot. So it helps, but it's, if you are a vegan, there's tons of hope. There's tons of ways to balance it. It's not,
I've totally done it. It's very doable. Yeah. And you just need to be conscious of really like getting beans in, getting seeds in. I can't even tell you, like, I can't say avocado enough. Like, avocado was like my like best friend during this. And again,
lentils too. Lentils are incredible.
Lentils. I love lentils. You know, like really quinoa, like making sure, especially, you know, if you want to embark on this, really nourish yourself, take care of yourself, plan out really hearty meals. And I
Mm-hmm.
would almost advocate like eat a little bit more of like, you know, make your salads a little bit bigger, make your quinoa yogi bowls a little bit bigger for the first couple weeks, and allow yourself to really make sure you're satiated. Because for me, and again, this was a lot of with what I did with releasing addictive tendencies around food, was when I'm able to like eat a meal, and this is still how I eat to this day. Like I'm not a snack person. I'm not a multi-meal person. Like I have 3 hearty meals and they're balanced. And I know that like, if I eat this meal, it is balanced enough and it is enough food that I'm going to feel satiated and I'm not going to feel hungry and I'm going to feel good. And from that place, when you're like still, if you're like, but that cupcake, right? You're like, but I'm good, but I'm genuinely good. So I can avoid that. I think the danger zone, and I think especially for vegans around this, is if you're eating something you're not eating. I work with tons of people that, and I'm a big plant-based diet advocate, but I'm a bigger advocate of listening to your body, and a bigger advocate of we're not all made the same. We're not supposed to all eat the same.
Forever either.
Yeah, forever. Exactly. And I think we constantly have to be checking in with our body and asking what's right for us right now. And that depends on so many different things based on our lifestyles, the climate we live in, just where we are in our age. It is to just be constantly checking in with yourself about that and what feels good. And, you know, I think especially when you're embarking on something like this, which is really exciting and taking a stand for your health and your well-being, it's so, so, so important, regardless of whatever diet you're on, to just make sure that you're really getting your vegetables and your protein, and you're really eating hearty, nourishing meals and taking care of yourself. Sorry, go.
I was just going to say the intuition piece is really important. And I think one of the most empowering and complementary things I do with my clients, because I believe in their human ability to discern and decipher cravings and listen and stay with that awkward craving moment, is I don't give people maps. You know, I don't say to them for the next 7 days, you're going to do X, Y, Z or bust. You know, it's actually, I give people a framework. And so you might call it a compass, a framework, but when they are educated, when they understand how blood sugar balance works in their unique body with their sleep schedule and their work schedule and whatever all the variables are, they can make decisions no matter where they are in the world. And they don't need a meal plan necessarily, although that helps in the beginning to get momentum. They don't need that because they're educated. I mentioned this too in social media. It's like, you know, the adage of like, you know, give a man fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish he can eat for life. And I think that's kind of the art of, and that's, again, it's a compliment to people. I think it's a disservice to people when people take diets and cleanses and programs and detoxes and they just follow it to a T and they never check in with themselves and they never check to see, how is this working? How am I feeling? What do I need to tweak? Because I can only do so much. It's a joint partnership of them checking in and saying, I want to tweak this. What can I do? And that's my job where I come in. But, you know, I love that part, the intuition.
Yes. And so just to kind of recap all this, I'd love for you to just go through what are the biggest benefits you see, you know, in yourself and with people that you've helped quit sugar.
Well, I'd say let's start with the physical component. I think people's skin clears up really quickly, especially because you're glowing over there. I would say honestly, like I don't use anything on my body, and I know it could be part genetic, but it's your skin is an expression of your microbiome. So let's just be real. Like in your microbiome is your body bacteria in and around your immune system and in other parts of your body that basically determines your immune expression. And when people have acne and psoriasis and eczema and like, you know, flushed skin and just pimples and stuff like that, it's basically an immune reaction. I mean, people don't want to admit that or talk about that, but that's what it is. And so when you clean up sugar, which is probably the most pro-inflammatory, immune system damaging foods on the planet, you essentially begin to lay a foundation for your skin to be better, to be healthier. Acne goes away, rosacea goes away, or it lessens. Eczema and psoriasis completely lessen, if not go away. These things are very, very physical and tangible. I think the interesting thing too is that people's mental clarity improves like dramatically. You know, they think they needed the coffee with the 3 tablespoons of sugar to get through the day, but they actually learn that the human body is designed like it's basically a miracle. That if you feed the body properly, the mind will work. You don't need a stimulant, you don't need sugar to keep you going, you don't need a 5-hour energy drink. So when you actually allow your body to show up for itself, your mind it's funny. Tim Ferriss was talking about this. He said, it's like coffee. Like the pros and cons are endless, right? We know it's great. We know it also causes some things. But basically, when you're eating a whole foods plant-based diet in the way that we're talking about with proper fat, fiber, protein, you're energized, but you're stable. You know what I mean? Like you're energized and stable. Whereas if you are eating whatever comes up, the quickest food possible, and you're surviving off caffeine and green tea, as good as those could be for you, you're energized, but you're freaking all over the place. You're completely scattered. And it's a different like hum of energy, I think, when you're naturally, fueling your body and you're managing glucose by the ways that we're talking about. So mental clarity improves. I'd say physically people lean out. It doesn't always happen. And I don't really work with people for weight loss specifically. That's a byproduct of what I do. But people do tend to lean out, because when you learn and teach your body to use fat as fuel versus being a sugar burner, you lean out. And that's just basic science and physiology. And as long as the thyroid is working, things like that will pan out to be very beneficial. The other thing too is I find that a lot of people have, people don't want to talk about it, but better health digestively. They go to the bathroom, they're not constipated anymore, or they're not having constant diarrhea. And all these things are like very, very real. Like we're talking like millions of Americans wake up and can't have a bowel movement. And that's like not good.
No, people don't realize how important that is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think one day I was like, I hadn't gone, I felt so frustrated, and I was like so anxious. And I was like, no wonder why the world's angry. Like if you can't have a bowel movement, like, you know what I mean? Like
it's so true. It's so true.
Those are, I'd say, the top four.
Part. Yeah.
The top 4 physical things that I see in people.
Yeah.
Long-term projection is basically if you maintain a lifestyle where this, and you kind of take what we're talking about, and you do create a new normal, you do create new habits, new lifestyle, new outlook, new circle of friends, new favorite restaurants. You slowly ease yourself into this lifestyle. What happens on paper for blood work and for disease prevention is marvelous. I mean, triglycerides lower. Cholesterol can actually improve and heighten, because we actually do want higher cholesterol than our average markers would indicate. Cholesterol is a very good indicator of a healthy brain. They find that people who have Alzheimer's and dementia actually have dramatically low levels of cholesterol. So we have to be mindful of that, and that whole thing is a different webinar. But anyway, triglycerides lower, cholesterol gets more healthy across the board, and we basically lay the foundation for disease prevention, which is like, people don't wake up thinking I want to prevent disease, I get it, but that's like what we do every day. Like we don't wake up at 65 and get disease. It's been happening for years and years and years. And I think if you adopt this kind of mindset around changing your lifestyle and your diet, it becomes very easy to wake up at 65 and feel pretty damn good.
Yeah. No, I think it's also great for, I'll speak to this just in my own experience. I feel like anti-aging almost, and maybe
totally, 100%
better. But my skin looked better than ever before, and on all levels. And yeah, for me, it definitely was. I was already at, a kind of like my fighting weight or whatever. So I didn't notice much of that. But what I did notice was for sure just the difference in my energy and my clarity. And because so many of the nut milks and stuff like that you get to put in coffee have sugar in it, it also dramatically reduced my coffee intake, because I'm not a black coffee person. And that was a blessing, because it also taught me at the same time, like right now I'm not having coffee and I have great energy. Mm-hmm. And it's energy.
Yeah, I've never had coffee in my life, and people are like, how do you do it?
You're lucky. Well, I think once you stop, it's a little it's harder to stop. But
I've had a few sips, but I'm a slow metabolizer of caffeine. So 51% of the population are slow metabolizers of caffeine, which means it comes in their system and they're wired for the rest of the night. They basically, they cannot, it's slowly leaving their system. So it's 9 o'clock at night, even though their coffee was at 8 a.m., it's still in their system and it's making them crazy. And that's me. So I've learned that. And so the only caffeine I can do is like a little bit of green tea in the morning and some dark chocolate, and that's all I can do.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. I'm like the opposite. I can like drink coffee and go to bed, which is not necessarily a good thing. But yeah, so thank you so much for, talking so much about this. I know it's a topic that a lot of people are interested in and curious about, and have probably read all sorts of different articles about it and just wanted to hear the realness. And Elisa is also launching a sugar cleanse challenge. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about that for anyone that's watching this and is like, I want to do this and I just want to, I want some support and some accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. Those two words, support and accountability, are it. You don't have to be like I was in Hawaii on my own, making my wife crazy, trying to figure it out. So the course begins September 1st. I run the course live 3 or 4 times a year, which means it's live in the sense that I'm there on the webinars. I'm able to answer questions just like today, and I'm very much available to the group in that live way. And so it's a 22-day, beginning challenge. And ultimately what I teach people is that the biggest shifts you're going to make are with your perspective and your lifestyle habits. And the food is almost the easy part. It's almost like the fun part where you get to try new things, learn a few new recipes, and again, like I mentioned, I do have a meal plan that I suggest. I do have over 75 recipes that are plant-based, blood sugar friendly. But my job is to teach you how to eat and teach you the beyond fat, fiber, protein, the tenets of blood sugar management. I talk a lot about the 3 S's in this course, obviously sugar being one of them, but sleep and stress. And I think people do forget that if you go to bed at 2 a.m., you're going to have a really hard time not craving sugar or sweet stuff all day because your body's craving energy. So there's all these little nuances of setting yourself up better to have a good cleanse or have a good experience that I do teach, because I think it's a comprehensive challenge. It's not just like get rid of white sugar. That's a great start, but then there's like life after that. So in this community, you get access to my Facebook group, which I monitor every day. There's lots of people, hundreds of people from all over the world have taken this course and they've loved it. And they have a great buzz, great community. There's tons of resources, interviews with other medical experts and, wellness celebrities and experts. And it's a really great experience. And, my job is to help you create this new normal. It used to be normal for me to eat a bag of Twizzlers. Also, normal for me to fall asleep mid-class. Like I was like narcoleptic, it wasn't good. And it was also normal for me to take tons of medication to feel happy. And those things were all normal for me. And I think at 32 and obviously where I am and now in my career, it's like I'm determined to help people, one person, one step at a time, create that new normal. But it can only begin, I believe, with community. And again, we don't accomplish things greatly by ourselves. And I think it's important to have not only a leader, but also a community of people who've done it and are going through it with you.
I love it. Yes, I think it definitely is helpful if you have, people that you can reach out to, so you don't maybe put that pressure on your partner and you're like, I'm so angry right now and all I want is cupcakes. And you can have some other people being like, I feel you, like go have some avocado toast. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Through this,
It's so funny. I have a dozen or so people in Hong Kong, because I used to live in Hong Kong, that have taken the course. And they're people who knew me and then people who heard about me on social media. And I think I want to create like a meetup for them, in different cities, people who've taken it. And even in New York City, we have like tons of people here who've taken the course. And so there's a bunch of restaurants I'm trying to figure out where we can go and just have like a celebratory meal. So there's also that component of it is virtual, but you have so much connection with someone like me and my community, which is, I think, invaluable. So
I love it. Well, we'll include all the info for that below. And if you guys have any questions or comments or thoughts on this interview, again, leave it in the comments below on YouTube. Both of us will have our eyes on it and get back to you. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being with me, Elisa. This was so fun and so enlightening. And I hope that it's got some people just stirred up and ready to, to try out this new way of living that I think both me and you have greatly appreciated. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being, for interviewing me and taking the time and sharing my story and everything with your audience. And you're great. Keep doing wonderful things in the world.
Awesome. Well, have a good one.
All right. See ya.
We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.